My parents sold my car to fund my sister's shopping, so I bought a new home under my name and left them shocked and powerless. I'm a 27-year-old guy, and my car was more than just a way to get from point A to point B, it was my independence. I bought it with every penny I'd scraped together from overtime shifts, late nights, and weekends spent hustling while my parents and Lily relied on handouts and excuses. I still remember the day I drove it off the lot, the smell of the new leather, the faint scent of gasoline mixing with that clean, plastic new car smell. It felt like freedom in four wheels. Suddenly, I could go wherever I wanted without asking permission or worrying about schedules, and for the first time, I felt like my hard work had actually paid off in a tangible, unshakable way. Lily, on the other hand, never had to earn anything. She had this effortless charm that made Mom and Dad bend over backward for her. A bad grade? She's just creative, she'll figure it out. Broke her phone again? We'll get her a new one. Meanwhile, if I forgot to fold laundry or was 2 minutes late picking up groceries, it was like the world was ending. I had grown used to that imbalance, rationalizing it in my head, it's just family dynamics. They mean well. But deep down, it burned like a dull, constant pain. I'd often take long drives at night, windows down, city lights blurring past, trying to drown out the frustration. There's something about speed, the hum of the tires against the asphalt, and the radio playing softly that makes you feel alive when everything else in your life feels like it's built on other people's terms. And yet, even as I reveled in my independence, a small knot of unease grew in my stomach. I had a feeling, a whisper in the back of my mind, that the very thing that represented my freedom, this car, my sanctuary, might soon be tested, taken away, or twisted into another example of their favoritism. I just didn't know how soon that test was coming, or how far it would cut. I came home one afternoon, tired from a double shift, expecting to toss my keys on the counter and maybe grab a snack. Instead, nothing. The keys weren't there. My stomach sank as I walked to the driveway. The car was gone. At first, I thought maybe Lily borrowed it without asking, she did that sometimes, but as I stepped into the house, I could see the faint smirk on Mom's face and the way Dad avoided eye contact. "Where's my car?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, we sold it," Mom said casually, like she was announcing we were out of milk. "We needed the money for Lily's shopping." My throat went dry. "Sold it? Without telling me?" That's my car. I worked for months, countless late nights, saving every cent for it. How could you?" Dad shrugged, like my words were background noise. Lily giggled from the couch, scrolling through her phone. "I didn't do anything," she said sweetly, but the guilt in her voice was non-existent. My mind was racing. Every small injustice I had swallowed for years flashed through me, excusing her mistakes, covering for her laziness, working twice as hard to keep the peace. And now this. My parents had literally taken the one thing that was mine, sold it, and treated it like it was nothing. I walked back into the living room, trying to steady my breathing, the floorboards creaking beneath me. The anger was raw, a heat spreading through my chest. But there was something else beneath it, a quiet, simmering realization that this wasn't just about a car. This was a test of boundaries, a reminder that my independence, everything I'd worked for, could be stripped away without warning. And in that moment, I knew one thing for sure, I couldn't let this go unchallenged, but I also didn't know how far I could push without completely losing control. After the car, everything felt heavier. I started noticing the patterns I'd ignored for years, the subtle but relentless favoritism, the constant expectation that I bend, sacrifice, and absorb whatever chaos Lily created. Mom and Dad were always quick to forgive her mistakes, but if I slipped, even once, it became a lecture, a judgment, a reminder that I was responsible and mature while Lily was special and sensitive. I tried to rationalize it, thinking, they love her. They just don't understand me. But every day, it felt like I was being punished for simply existing on my own terms. I remember one night, sitting at the kitchen table, dishes piled high, Lily scrolling through her new online shopping haul while I balanced bills and spreadsheets. "You're always so uptight," she said, smirking. "Maybe if you relaxed, you'd have more fun." I clenched my jaw. "You don't get it. I work hard for what I have, I earned it," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Mom intervened, glancing at me, frowning slightly. "Don't be so dramatic," she said softly, like they were both embarrassed by my complaint, but never bothered to question Lily. Driving had been my escape, but even that felt compromised now. I'd catch myself staring at empty parking spaces, imagining my car there, imagining the freedom I used to feel slipping further away. Every night, the hum of the city outside my window reminded me that while the world kept moving, my family's control was creeping closer, suffocating, relentless. I realized something chilling: this wasn't a one-off mistake or oversight. Their favoritism, their entitlement, their inability to see me as more than a backup plan for Lily, it was ingrained. And for the first time, I understood that reclaiming even a sliver of independence would require more than anger, it would require a plan, patience, and careful calculation. But I didn't know yet how deep the betrayal would run, or just how far I'd have to go to break free. After weeks of simmering frustration, I started to realize something: I didn't have to let them dictate my life. The car was gone, sure, but my freedom wasn't gone, at least, not entirely. I began quietly saving, tucking away small amounts from side gigs, extra shifts, anything I could hide from Mom and Dad. Every deposit felt like a small rebellion, a tiny spark of control that reminded me I could still carve out a life on my own terms. I remember sitting in my cramped apartment one evening, the hum of the refrigerator and distant traffic outside my window filling the silence, scrolling through listings for small homes and condos. My pulse quickened with a mixture of fear and excitement. Could I actually do this? Could I, after years of bending to their whims, finally claim something that was fully mine? Meanwhile, the family routine continued like nothing had changed. Lily bragged about a new designer bag she'd bought, Mom fussed over her as if she were a queen, and Dad just nodded, oblivious to the anger quietly coiling inside me. I'd smile politely when they asked about work, nod when they asked about bills, but underneath that polite exterior, I was planning. Every conversation, every subtle jab, I catalogued. Their arrogance, it was almost laughable. They thought I was trapped, that I'd continue to sacrifice without question. That night, I parked myself at the window, staring out at the streetlights, the cars moving past, imagining one of them pulling into my future driveway, my space, my life. I could almost feel it, the freedom, the sense of security that no one could take away. But there was a tension lingering, a gnawing uncertainty: how long could I wait before taking action? And would they notice the shift in me before it was too late? Something had to change. And soon. It happened completely by accident. I was scrolling through listings late one night, just curious, half-heartedly thinking about a life where my decisions weren't dictated by their favoritism, when I stumbled across it: a small house, in my price range, fully under my name, with nothing hidden or complicated. My chest tightened, and I had to sit down. It felt surreal, like I'd found a secret doorway out of the cage I'd been living in. The realization hit me hard: I could finally have something completely untouchable, a space that was mine and mine alone. I spent the next few days obsessively crunching numbers, planning every detail, from savings transfers to inspections, without anyone suspecting. Every time I saw Lily complaining about not having enough, or Mom lamenting minor inconveniences, a wave of determination surged through me. They were blind to my patience, blind to my quiet rebellion, blind to the fact that while they were indulging entitlement, I was building freedom. One night, Dad leaned over my shoulder while I was browsing listings. "Why do you waste your time with these apartments? You'll never be able to afford them," he said, a smug half-smile on his face. I swallowed my frustration, nodded politely, and replied, "I like to plan ahead." That was all. They had no idea that planning ahead had just turned into something monumental. The twist, though, was in how close I was to pulling it off completely under the radar. I felt a rush of empowerment, a thrill I hadn't experienced since getting my car. For the first time, I realized I wasn't just reacting anymore, I was moving first. But with every plan comes risk, and the tiniest misstep could expose everything. And in the back of my mind, I knew one thing with terrifying clarity: if they discovered what I was doing, it would change everything. I had to be careful. Every call to the bank, every message to a real estate agent, every deposit I made had to be invisible to my parents' prying eyes. The apartment listings and inspection schedules were saved in private folders, my phone on silent when I made arrangements. I kept up appearances at home, smiling politely at Lily when she bragged about her latest shopping spree, nodding when Mom fussed over her like she was a princess, pretending to be absorbed in work while plotting my escape. The tension was almost tangible in the air, every word I spoke had to be measured, every glance calculated, like walking on a tightrope over a pit that could swallow me whole. One evening, I sat in my room, the glow of my laptop illuminating the stack of paperwork, and I could hear Lily laughing downstairs, Mom and Dad cooing over her like she was untouchable. I closed my eyes and breathed in the faint scent of the night air drifting through the open window, reminding myself why I was doing this. This wasn't just about a house, it was about reclaiming my autonomy, about proving to myself that I could exist outside their suffocating favoritism. But secrecy comes with its own weight. Every interaction felt like a test. I could sense the arrogance in my parents, the assumption that I'd continue to obey, continue to sacrifice, continue to exist on their terms. They had no idea how close I was to breaking free. And every time Lily tossed a careless comment about not needing to worry, my heart clenched, knowing that the moment of reveal would be as sweet as it would be shocking. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, imagining the day I would finally step into my own space. It felt so close I could almost touch it, but I knew patience was everything. One wrong move, and the whole plan could collapse before it even began. That night, I hit a wall. I was sitting on my bed, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding, chest tight, and I felt utterly alone. All the sacrifices, all the late nights, all the careful planning, it felt like it was about to be swallowed up by years of unfair treatment. The weight of my parents' favoritism and Lily's entitlement pressed down on me so hard that I almost wanted to scream. I thought about the car, my hard-earned independence, gone in an instant, sold like it meant nothing. I thought about all the times I had bent over backward to protect them, to keep the peace, to cover for Lily's mistakes, and the realization hit me: they didn't care. None of it mattered to them. I clenched my fists, the tension in my jaw so sharp it felt like it might split my face. My apartment felt smaller than ever, like the walls themselves were mocking my helplessness. Even the thought of the house I'd been planning for months, the escape, the freedom, felt like a cruel tease. What if it falls through? What if they find out? My mind spiraled, the anxiety mixing with rage, guilt, and exhaustion until I felt paralyzed. I remember whispering to myself, maybe I'm not strong enough, maybe I'll never be free. The words tasted bitter in my mouth, like ash. But somewhere deep down, a spark remained, the part of me that had quietly saved, quietly planned, quietly endured. It whispered that I wasn't done yet, that patience and strategy would win over raw emotion. I lay back on the bed, staring at the dark ceiling, trying to steady my breathing. The knot in my chest didn't loosen, but I felt a shift. The hopelessness was raw, yes, but it was also the fuel I needed to keep going. And as I closed my eyes, I made a promise to myself: no matter how long it took, no matter how furious or entitled they became, I would find my way out. But I had no idea just how close they were to noticing the first cracks in my facade. The day it finally happened, I felt like I could breathe again. After weeks of secrecy, spreadsheets, phone calls, and silent sacrifices, the property was officially in my name. I remember staring at the closing documents on my kitchen table, the pen shaking slightly in my hand, signing away my old life and stepping into one I had carved out entirely on my own. The sense of empowerment was intoxicating. The legal papers weren't just paper, they were freedom, proof that no one could touch this piece of my life, no matter how entitled or manipulative they were. I thought about Mom and Dad, about Lily, about every time they'd brushed me aside or excused her at my expense. Their arrogance and control had always been constant, like a shadow that followed me everywhere. And now, for the first time, the shadow had been cut away. I could feel the weight of years lifting off my shoulders as I imagined moving into a place that was mine, fully mine. I spent the evening walking through the empty rooms, imagining furniture, imagining quiet nights with no judgment or unsolicited advice. The smell of fresh paint mingled with the faint scent of the outdoors drifting through the windows, a reminder that this wasn't just a building, it was autonomy. Every creak in the floorboards felt like a heartbeat of liberation. But with victory came caution. I couldn't let them know yet. They had no idea how close I was to fully claiming this independence, and I needed to play my hand perfectly. One slip, one careless comment, and years of careful planning could unravel in a moment. And as I locked the front door that night, I realized the hardest part wasn't signing the papers, it was preparing for the storm when they finally realized I was untouchable. I invited them over one Saturday afternoon, under the guise of a casual family visit. Lily pranced in like she owned the place already, Mom fussing over her hair, Dad grumbling about parking. I kept my calm, my hands steady, my smile polite, but inside, I was buzzing with anticipation. I could feel the power of what I was about to do radiating through me. "Hey, so, I wanted to show you something," I said, leading them into the living room. The look on their faces changed the moment they stepped inside. Their eyes widened at the sight of furniture I hadn't yet bought, boxes neatly stacked, and the air smelling faintly of fresh paint and possibility. "Wait, this is yours." Dad stammered, disbelief creeping into his voice. Lily froze mid-step, mouth slightly open, like she couldn't comprehend what she was seeing. I nodded, calmly. "Yes. All mine. This house, fully in my name. Completely independent." I could feel their shock, almost taste it, thick and heavy in the air. Mom gasped, trying to compose herself. "But, why didn't we know?" she stammered. I took a slow breath. "I've been planning it quietly, saving carefully, and making sure nothing could stop me. It's mine. And from now on, my decisions, my space, and my time are mine alone." The silence was electric. Lily's usual smug grin had disappeared, replaced with a mix of fury and confusion. Dad opened his mouth to argue, then shut it again. For the first time in my life, they had no leverage over me, no control, no excuses. And in that stunned quiet, I realized how much power I had quietly accumulated over the years, power they had never imagined I could wield. But the storm wasn't over yet. Their confusion and entitlement were just beginning to churn. After the initial shock, the real chaos began. My parents scrambled, pacing the living room, whispering urgently to each other, their faces tight with disbelief. We need to talk to the bank." Dad muttered, his voice almost frantic. Lily's face twisted with frustration, her usual entitlement clashing with the reality that I was untouchable. Every attempt they made to guilt me, to negotiate, or to reclaim control fell flat. I stood there calmly, letting their panic unfold, a quiet smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. They tried their usual tactics, subtle manipulation, emotional pleas, even thinly veiled anger. "We're your parents. We only want what's best," Mom exclaimed, waving her hands. But I had built walls too high, walls crafted from patience, planning, and quiet rebellion. Their words bounced off me like raindrops on glass. For once, I wasn't the one bending, they were the one stumbling, grasping at air, realizing that their usual control had evaporated. The tension in the room was palpable. Every glance they exchanged was tinged with panic and frustration. Lily stomped toward the door, muttering under her breath about how unfair it was. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. The power dynamic had flipped completely. And as I watched them retreat, arguing and fuming in their own world, I felt a profound mix of relief and vindication. I realized that years of manipulation, favoritism, and betrayal had taught me one thing: patience and strategy can dismantle even the most entitled, confident oppressors. But even in their chaos, I knew this wasn't the end of the story. There was still one final layer to reveal: the true measure of independence, the ultimate satisfaction, and the quiet revenge that came without confrontation. Finally, I settled into my new home, and for the first time in years, I felt truly free. The hum of the heater, the soft creak of the floorboards beneath my feet, even the faint scent of fresh paint mingled with the lingering aroma of coffee, it all felt like mine, entirely mine. No one was there to judge, to criticize, to take what I had earned. I could walk through these rooms knowing that every decision, every inch of space, every moment belonged solely to me. I still heard whispers from outside my world, snippets of gossip from relatives, the occasional frustrated text from Lily, but I didn't respond. The silence itself became my weapon. Letting them stew in their confusion and entitlement was far more satisfying than yelling or lashing out ever could have been. I spent evenings alone on the balcony, city lights glittering below, thinking about how far I'd come, the patience I'd exercised, the sacrifices I'd made, and how all of it had led to this quiet victory. Friends who visited commented on the sense of calm, the peace that radiated from the place. "You look different," one said, noticing a strength in my posture I hadn't realized I'd developed. And I did feel different, empowered, unshakable, untouchable. For years, my parents' favoritism and Lily's entitlement had shaped me, but now they were powerless against the life I had carefully built for myself. I reflected on the irony: the very family that tried to control me, belittle me, and rob me of independence had unwittingly taught me the tools to reclaim it. And as I closed my eyes that night, listening to the faint hum of the city, I felt a serenity that I hadn't thought possible. But even with my life reclaimed, a part of me knew the final chapter, the ultimate lesson in quiet, devastating empowerment, was still to come. Months later, I still hear about them, Mom, Dad, and Lily, struggling with the reality that they have no control over me. Lily tries her little schemes, subtle manipulations, and thinly veiled complaints, but they bounce off me now. I've built walls from patience, strategy, and quiet independence that no amount of entitlement or parental guilt-tripping can breach. For the first time, I feel untouchable, and it's intoxicating in a way I never thought possible. I think back to the car, the first symbol of my freedom that was stolen from me. That betrayal, which once cut so deep, was the spark that ignited every late-night plan, every careful saving, every small, secretive step toward a life I fully owned. I've come to realize that sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't confrontation or rage, it's simply walking away and letting people face the consequences of their own entitlement and arrogance. Sitting in my living room, watching the sunset paint the walls gold, I feel the weight of years lifting off me completely. Financially secure, emotionally detached from their manipulations, and socially calm, I've built a life that is entirely on my terms. I think of their shock the day they discovered my house, and I can't help but smile quietly. It's satisfaction without a word, empowerment without a fight. The city hums softly outside my windows, lights flickering like tiny stars. And in that quiet, I feel peace, freedom, and a sense of completion. My independence is untouchable, my life is mine, and for the first time ever, I am truly free. Some lessons take years to learn, but the payoff is sweeter than anything I could have imagined.